Today we have a two-round 2023 NFL mock draft. This is going to be a predictive mock, what I think will happen in just under a week. Let's go ahead and hop right into this thing. At pick number 1, the Carolina Panthers on the clock. This is completely swung into the favor of Bryce Young being the selection here. Sounds like that's pretty much the route that they're going to go, and it sounds pretty much set in stone that he's going to be the pick here, so we are going to go ahead and pick Bryce Young for the Carolina Panthers. At number 2, the Houston Texans on the clock. This has become a increasingly likely scenario where perhaps they do not take a quarterback with this pick here. CJ Stroud was perhaps the favorite for number 1 for a very long time. Now I think there's a good chance he does not go with the second pick here. Apparently the Texans not very in on him. So I'm going to have Will Anderson go number 2 overall to the Houston Texans. I think it is going to be interesting to see if that does play out where CJ Stroud may fall. At pick number 3, I do think that the Arizona Cardinals will look to trade out of this pick regardless of who's there. But since CJ Stroud is currently on the board, do think that other teams could really try to move up for him. One team that I do think really would want to secure their quarterback is actually Indianapolis, just one pick later, but you're going to have to trade up to ensure that you get your guy. And so I'm going to have the Cardinals trading with Arizona here to go ahead and ensure that they go get their guy. I'm going to have them giving up 79 here. I do think that is what it would take to move up that one spot, give up a third rounder, and ensure that you are able to go ahead and get CJ Stroud here. At number 4, we have the Cardinals back on the board here. I think they go Tyree Wilson. It sounds like the NFL is incredibly high on Tyree Wilson. His length, his athleticism, pretty much all of the traits he has is going to make him drafted really, really high. I think he does probably end up going top 5 either to Arizona or in the very next pick to Seattle. I like Tyree Wilson. I think he could be a very good player, and this Arizona defense desperately needs to get some pass rush added to that front 7. I think Wilson would be a very good start in kind of rebuilding that unit a lot after J.J. Watt left and some of the other talent on that roster. Next up here, I do think that Seattle could look to trade out of this pick. I could see them taking somebody like Anthony Richardson, but ultimately I'm going to have them trade out. It sounds like Tennessee is very much in on this quarterback class. They seem to really like some of these guys, so I have them giving up 41 as well as a 4th rounder next year to move up 6 spots here to number 5. And I think that they are going to move up for Anthony Richardson, the absolute freak out of Florida. He's just got all of the traits that you look for. Still think he has a lot of ways to go when it comes to his accuracy and some of his decision making, but all of the traits are absolutely there, and he would be a great player to go ahead and sit behind either Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis, whoever ends up starting this year, and really kind of develop and see if he can turn into a franchise quarterback in Tennessee. Next, we have Detroit on the clock. I think Devin Witherspoon makes a ton of sense for them. They did just trade Jeff Okudah. You got Sutton and Mosley in free agency. I like those moves, and I think they've got some good players on the roster as well, but Devin Witherspoon just brings a great attitude. He's somebody I think Dan Campbell would really like. He's a very, very good corner and somebody that I just think is going to go pretty high in this draft. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he goes off the board to the Lions at number 6. At number 7, we've got the Raiders on the clock. They could go with Jalen Carter, but not sure if he would really fit what they're looking for character-wise. I think Christian Gonzalez makes a lot of sense. You need to improve that secondary a lot. Nate Hobbs is a good player, but I think you really need to add an outside corner. Christian Gonzalez has all the traits that the Raiders tend to really look for as well. He's long, he's tall, he's super athletic, very fast as well, so definitely think he was going to be somebody that they're very intrigued with and somebody that could go pretty high in this draft at number 7 here to the Raiders. Next up for the Falcons at number 8, I'm going to have them select Nolan Smith, the edge rusher out of Georgia. Really like what he can do off the edge. I think he's very good speed rusher. I think he could also play off-ball linebacker a little bit for them, really add to that pass rush. Sure, they could go with Jalen Carter, but I'm just not sure if character-wise he is going to be somebody that they're interested in. Nolan Smith has incredibly good football character. He's a great leader, somebody that I think would fit the culture they're looking for very, very well. He's also from Georgia, which they tend to like as well, so I just think Nolan Smith makes a lot of sense for the Falcons at number 8. Wouldn't surprise me if he comes off the board in the top 10, and he's definitely improved his stock a lot this offseason. Next up, the Chicago Bears on the clock at number 9. I have them going with a trade here. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers moving up, giving up 17 and 32. Originally, the Bears pick their number 32. I have the Bears giving up 9 and also their third-round pick this year. Move back a couple of spots and get that extra kind of early second-round pick, but basically a first-round pick due to that draft position as well. So I do have that trade going down. And I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are coming up for Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle out of Georgia. I just think he's somebody that they would really like. He's super talented. And, if he didn't have the character concerns, he would definitely be off the board at this point. I could see the Bears really considering taking him as well. But for the Bears, I think you continue to add assets. I think you continue to add swings and different opportunities to fill holes on the roster because there are a lot of holes on the roster. And so I think makes just a lot of sense for both teams. And I have the Steelers coming up for Jalen Carter at number 9. At number 10, we have the Philadelphia Eagles on the clock. I have them going with Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle out of Northwestern. Think he can play guard year one and then perhaps kick out to right tackle when Lane Johnson does eventually retire. Howie Roseman just loves to invest in the trenches, and he's somebody that I think is very, very adamant about taking offensive line early and often, as well as defensive line. It wouldn't surprise me if they take Carter if he's there, or Nolan Smith if he's there. Maybe it ends up being Lucas Van Ness, but he has all of the positional versatility you look for as well, just somebody I think that the Eagles will really like. At number 11, the Seahawks back on the clock after trading back with the Titans. I've been going with Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Sounds like he's pretty much the consensus number 1 at this point. He just is going to be a very good player in the NFL. He's going to be a great slot option day one. You get Metcalf, Lockett, and Smith-Njigba. That's one of the best wide receiver trios in the entire NFL. Really let Geno Smith kind of have the reins to that offense. You've got Kenneth Walker as well. Some nice young developing tackles. This Seahawks offense could be a very dangerous unit with Jackson Smith-Njigba on the team as well. The Houston Texans now on the clock at number 12. I have them going with Will Levis, the quarterback out of Kentucky. I think there's a decent chance that Levis does come off the board number 2 to the Texans. That's kind of picking up a lot of steam. He's the betting favorite to go there now. I'm not sure where Will Levis will land. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up going top 4, maybe even top 2. But in this draft, I did just have him slipping a little bit and have him going number 12 overall to the Houston Texans, who get Will Anderson and then get Will Levis as well. At number 13, Jets on the clock here. I have them going Paris Johnson Jr., offensive tackle out of Ohio State. He's got positional versatility. He's probably the best left tackle in this class from day one. I just think that he is a very good player. He's very polished. He has all the athletic traits you could possibly look for as well. He'd just be a perfect player to plug into that offensive line. You've got Dwayne Brown, you've got Mekhi Becton, but he just provides stability at that tackle position, which they've desperately needed for years. The New England Patriots on the clock next. I have them going with Zay Flowers, the wide receiver out of Boston College. Just a lot of smoke that they really like him. The Patriots just tend to like the players that they like and continue to take them no matter where other teams have them evaluated. That's, what happened with Cole Strange last year as well. And so I think they're just going to take the players that they like. I think they like Zay Flowers, and he comes off the board here at number 14 as the second wide receiver off the board. Just provides them a nice vertical threat as well as somebody that can separate at all 3 levels of the field. The Green Bay Packers on the clock next. I think they can go in a variety of different directions. Van Ness certainly on the board, but I'm going to have them going with Myles Murphy. He's long, he's athletic, got great traits. They just tend to really value that all at defensive end, edge position, and I think that that's somebody that they would really, really like. He's going to be a little bit more of a raw player, but so is Rashawn Gary coming out, and I think that they tend to just value big, physical, really good athletes at that position, and that's exactly Myles Murphy to a T. At number 16, the Commanders on the clock. I have them going with Deonte Banks, the corner out of Maryland. He's actually my corner 3 in this draft. I just love his athleticism, his fluidity. He can continue to develop his ball skills for sure, but I just really, really like the kind of player that he can become, and I think he is going to be a very, very talented corner in the NFL. They can kind of use him in a variety of different schemes. I just think that no matter what, he is going to have the athletic traits, the scheme versatility, and the upside to be a very good player in the NFL, and so I really like Banks off the board here at number 16. The Chicago Bears back on the clock after they traded back for the second time now. I have them going with Broderick Jones, the tackle out of Georgia. Whether that's keeping Braxton Jones on the left side or moving, the Georgia tackle here, Broderick Jones, over to the right or vice versa, I think that you could kind of move it around and just play these guys at their best position. I just think you need to protect Justin Fields. You need to get better in the run game. I really like what Broderick Jones can do. He's got great potential, just needs to harness that a little bit, and I think Chicago would be a good landing spot for him. Got the Detroit Lions back on the clock. We had them selecting Witherspoon earlier. I'm going to go with Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher out of Iowa. Just seems like somebody that Dan Campbell would really like. He's somebody that has lots of raw tools. You can pair him with Hutchinson, and they could be a very dynamic outside rush duo. I also think Van Ness can kick into 3-tech at times if you do want him to on obvious pass down. So definitely some nice versatility there. You just kind of got to get the most out of Van Ness because he is a raw player. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the clock now. I have them going with Darnell Wright, the tackle out of Tennessee. Definitely think he could go a little bit higher than this for sure, but in this case you are moving Tristan Wirfs over to the left side. There's been a lot of talks of doing that, and then Darnell Wright slots in very nicely on that right side, so that fixes the tackle situation after cutting Donovan Smith, and so I really like that pick for the Buccaneers. The Seahawks now on the clock here. I have them going with Brian Brzee. Didn't have great tape this past season. He was going through a lot, both, has dealt with injuries, dealt with, the unfortunate passing of his little sister as well. So definitely just had a lot going on, but hasn't really put it all together. But the talent is absolutely there. The flashes are absolutely there. And the Seahawks just tend to bet on guys with absolute freakish traits. And Brzee definitely has that as the former #1 recruit in his class. So definitely think that he has some great upside that the Seahawks would look to kind of unlock with him there. Get some beef in the middle of that defense. With the Chargers on the clock next, I really like this pick for them. Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah. He just provides some nice stability. He's a great receiving weapon over the middle of the field. He's very, very good when it comes to route running. Just reliable hands. He's just a great underneath target for Justin Herbert. I think you can move on from Gerald Everett after this year and really kind of let Kincaid be that next weapon for Justin Herbert. Obviously, you'd love a speed wide receiver here, but there's just nobody that's really worth that pick, in my opinion. You could take Quentin Johnston, but even then, I don't know that he's a true vertical threat. So I think you just take somebody that's going to be a nice, reliable weapon for Justin Herbert, and I think that's Dalton Kincaid right here. For the Baltimore Ravens, I have them going with Joey Porter Jr. I think this is kind of an ideal fit for them. He's physical, he's good in press man, he's just willing to, talk the talk, he walks it as well, so definitely somebody that's just very physical at the line. He's not afraid to press, he just matches the attitude of what Baltimore is looking for, and so Joey Porter Jr. just makes so much sense for them at that pick there at number 22. The Minnesota Vikings on the clock here. I am now going to have them trade down to pick number 30 with the Philadelphia Eagles. They're picking up an extra third-round pick. I'm going to have the Eagles trading up and select Bijan Robinson, the running back out of Texas. I just think that they want to go get their guy. I know he doesn't have positional value, but he is an absolute freak. And if he gets to this point, wouldn't surprise me if a team trades up for him to really kind of prevent the other teams in front of him getting him. I do think that Buffalo would highly consider him. I think Dallas would highly consider him. The Bengals might. So the Eagles can't sit around and hope he gets to their pick. If they want to, have Bijan Robinson on this team, go get him. And in this case, they do. They trade back with the Vikings. There's not really any corners that I love for the Vikings at this point. So not somebody that really sticks out to me as somebody they really need to take. So they trade down. I do have the Jaguars selecting Brian Branch, the safety slot corner out of Alabama. He's just a perfect fit for what they need. This is an exact big team need for them, and he's just one of the most consistent players in the draft. Very high floor player in my opinion, so just makes loads of sense, and I do think there's a good chance he is there. For the Giants at number 25, I have them going with Quentin Johnston out of TCU. He does have some speed. I think he can threaten vertically. He also is big, and that kind of is different from what the Giants currently do have. They have a lot of smaller receivers on the team. They need somebody with some size, and that is Quentin Johnston. I do think his stock has fallen a little bit just because he does body catch a lot. His workout wasn't absolutely insane, and so I do think he has fallen a little bit here, but I think he would be a nice fit for the Giants and kind of fits what they need at that wide receiver position to really get the most out of Daniel Jones. The Dallas Cowboys up now. Sounds like Michael Mayer is a kind of favorite within that building. He's somebody that would really allow them to both run the ball effectively as well as be a nice replacement for Dalton Schultz in the passing game as well. Just think he provides a lot of nice ability in both phases of the game, and I just think he's a very high floor player, one of the safest players in this draft. I think he's definitely going to be a very solid player in the NFL, so just makes a lot of sense for the Cowboys to select him there. The Buffalo Bills on the clock next. I have them going with Anton Harrison, the tackle out of Oklahoma. You can just solidify that offensive line, perhaps play him at right tackle and move Spencer Brown either to the bench or to right guard. I just think you got to add to that offensive line. It wasn't very good last year, and Anton Harrison is probably the best lineman available at this point. He's also got the ability to play tackle, which I think is very important as well. So just makes a lot of sense for the Bills here to go ahead and select Harrison at number 27. The Cincinnati Bengals on the clock, I'm going to have them select Kalijah Kancey out of Pittsburgh. He's just a great pass rusher at that 3-tech position. He's not going to be able to be a major factor in the run game, but you put him right next to DJ Reader and BJ Hill, both guys that are over 300 pounds, and I just think that he provides a different element to that defense, really allows them to get after the quarterback and really just be somebody that causes havoc in the middle of that defense. Somebody I think they could really use. He's a pass rush specialist at the defensive tackle position, which is hard to find. An amazing athlete, just small, and I think that's going to cause him to fall, but I do think the Bengals could take advantage and take him at number 28 here. I have the New Orleans Saints on the clock next year. I'm going to go with Keon White. He was invited to the draft, which makes me think that he is going to go a lot higher than people think. He is very physically gifted. He's big and very, very good with his ability in run defense. He's just the kind of player that the Saints really like as far as just good athletic tools and big, and they really value that in their defensive ends, and so I think this just makes a lot of sense for what they generally need. He can help replace Cam Jordan, who continues to age, and they lost Marcus Davenport as well, so I just think it provides some nice ability in the middle of that defense to be, effective against the run. Now, Minnesota here, at this pick, I actually do have them selecting Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee. There's just so much hype around him going in the first round at this point. I just had to include him. And the Vikings trade down and acquire their potential successor for Kirk Cousins. I don't think this is the worst scenario ever. I personally wouldn't take Hendon Hooker in the first round, but this is a predictive mock draft, and I do think that there's a very good chance he does go at the end of round 1 here. And so wouldn't surprise me at all if Minnesota is one of those teams that certainly considers taking him. I have him being selected with the 30th pick here after the Vikings trade down with the Eagles. Then the Chiefs on the clock here. I'm going to go with Will McDonald, the edge rusher out of Iowa State. I just think he can provide a little bit different elements to their pass rush that George Karlaftis, their first round pick last year, provides. I just think he is going to be a good player and somebody that the Chiefs could definitely use just to mix up the pass rush. That does it for the first round. Before we get into round 2, please, if you like this kind of content, hit that subscribe button down below. Really helps grow this channel, and I put out tons of NFL draft content just like this, have mock drafts, scouting reports, predictions, team rankings, all of that stuff there. So if you like that kind of content, please hit that subscribe button down below. Let's hop into round 2. For the Chicago Bears, who now have the 32nd overall pick after that trade with Pittsburgh, I'm going to have them going with Adebawore out of Northwestern. He's somebody that can line up at edge. He can be a 3-tech, which is very valuable within the Ryan Poles system. He really wants to get that 3-tech. I think Adebawore could be that player. He's somebody that has positional versatility. He's a little bit of a tweener, but his athletic upside is insane. His workout was insane. So definitely think he's somebody that could sneak into round 1, but definitely going to be a very good player, I think, once he is able to kind of realize all of his tools. For the Texans, they got Will Anderson, they got Will Levis. I'm going to go with Jordan Addison now. Did fall out of round 1, but I think at this point he could be a nice pick for a team, and certainly somebody that gives their quarterback, Will Levis, another weapon. You get Will Anderson also to really kind of solidify that defensive line. This would be a very impressive draft for the Texans if they were able to pull that off. For the Cardinals here, I do think they need to attack the corner position. I have them going with Cam Smith out of South Carolina. He's physical. I think he is somebody that has a great attitude for the position as well. Not sure if he's going to really sneak into round 1, but I think towards the top of round 2, he's somebody that can definitely be in play. Marco Wilson is currently the number 1 corner in Arizona. They've got to help out that defense. Jonathan Gannon is the head coach. He's not going to stand for a complete disaster of a unit on that defense, and I think they will address that with their first 2 picks here, selecting Cam Smith to help that corner position. We now have the Colts on the clock. I'm going to have them going with O'Cyrus Torrence out of Florida. I think he's just a big guy, and he's somebody that would help protect CJ Stroud in this case. I just think they need to get much better on the interior. It's just not been a very good unit. Even Quentin Nelson hasn't been great recently. They just need to get some players that can really kind of protect Stroud and be a force on the interior. I think Torrence can be that kind of player and be a very good player for them on that offensive line. The Rams now on the clock. I have them going with B.J. Ojulari out of LSU. They need to continue to add to that edge rush room. Ojulari has some of the best bend in the class. He's just very, very good attacking that outside shoulder and being a true speed rusher. I think he's going to be an immediate impact on third downs and somebody that I think the Rams could definitely use to really bolster that pass rush. The Seahawks now on the clock. I do think they can solidify the interior of their offensive line at this point. I'm going to have them going with John Michael Schmitz. I think he is far and away the best offensive lineman on the interior, at least in that center class. Now you get your big guy in the middle of that offense there and go get John Michael Schmitz. The Raiders now on the clock. We had them going with Christian Gonzalez. We're going to have them going with another physical freak, Mozzie Smith, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. He's very athletic. He's got some good ability in both the run and the pass game. He's got some upside, kind of both. I think there's a lot of untapped potential there, but he's definitely an athletic freak for his size. Was number one on Feldman's freak list coming into the season, and somebody that I think could definitely be a very disruptive player for them on that front seven. We have the Panthers on the clock now. I think they are going to look to surround Bryce Young with as many weapons as possible. I'm going to have them going with Jalen Hyatt, the wide receiver out of Tennessee. You've got Thielen, who's kind of more of a contested catch, route running type. You've got Chark, who can be a field stretcher, but Jalen Hyatt just brings a completely new dimension of speed to that offense. Somebody I think could be very, very dangerous. For the Saints now, I'm going to have them going with Jahmyr Gibbs. He's basically Alvin Kamara, I think, in a lot of ways. He's going to be an absolute monster when it comes to hitting home runs. He's going to be very effective in the receiving game, taking checkdowns and turning them into chunk plays. He's somebody that I do think is probably not an every down back, but when he has his chances out in the open space, he is an absolute dynamic runner and somebody that I think would be a very natural replacement for Kamara in that Saints offense. The Seahawks acquired this pick here from the Titans in their trade down. I'm going to have them going with a linebacker, Trenton Simpson. I think he's got great athletic ability. He's somebody that could really kind of help the middle of that defense. They need to get a little bit better at that linebacker position. Jordan Brooks is a good player, but pair him with Trenton Simpson and all of a sudden this defense is kind of really becoming a scary unit. I think Pete Carroll really wants to address the front seven, and they invest 2 of their picks there early on into that front seven. At number 42, I have the Packers on the clock after an Aaron Rodgers trade. Players aren't in this mock draft simulator, so this is the Packers pick. I am going to have them going with tight end Darnell Washington. Just provides so much upside in both the run game as a blocker and then just a freakish athletic ability. So that pick for the Packers there, I think, could be a very nice fit as an underneath weapon and a great blocker. The Jets now actually on the clock here. I have them going with Felix Anudike-Uzomah, one of my favorite players, the edge rusher out of Kansas State. Really like what he can do. I think he's very technically sound. Got just a lot of pass rush moves in his arsenal, and I think he has a very high floor in the NFL. Just continue to add to that pass rush. Carl Lawson not seeming like a long-term option for them, so just get somebody in there that's young and can really kind of get after the passer. The Falcons on the clock now. I have them going with Drew Sanders, the linebacker out of Arkansas. He can kind of be a pseudo edge rusher as well. He played edge rusher at Alabama before transferring to Arkansas. Just think he has a lot of versatility in the front seven. You can kind of use him in the poor man's Micah Parsons role, just move him all over the defense and really just kind of use him as a blitzer, as a true off-ball linebacker. Just got a ton of potential, just need to get the most out of him. I think the Falcons really are shooting for some upside in that defense room, and I think Sanders could really provide that. The Packers got Myles Murphy and then Darnell Washington. I am going to have them going with wide receiver Cedric Tillman here. He's got some size, somebody that can be a nice weapon for them. I think he's a little underrated in this class. I think he might actually be better than his teammate Jalen Hyatt. So definitely like Cedric Tillman, and I think that he fits a lot of the things that Green Bay really likes in a wide receiver as well. He's big, he's physical, got the contested catch ability. The Patriots on the clock next. I have them going with Keely Ringo, the corner out of Georgia. They tend to like guys that are physical. That's certainly Ringo. I think he might even convert to safety at some point in the NFL. He's a big hitter. I do have him as one of my most overrated players in the 2023 NFL draft. I just don't think that he can necessarily flip his hips very well, but I do like some of his abilities, and I think that the Patriots are a team that would really like him. With the Commanders on the clock next, I have them going with Steve Avila out of TCU. Just think that he could provide some stability on the interior there. Their offensive line is really old, and it's just not a very good unit either. I think Avila, you could play him at any of the interior spots, bring some youth into that room, and protect whoever your quarterback's going to be, whether it's Howell or someone else. For the Lions now, you've got Devin Witherspoon, you've got Van Ness. I'm going to have them going with another defensive player. That's Jack Campbell out of Iowa. I don't really like Alex Anzalone. He's fine, but not really an insane insanely good player. I just like Jack Campbell. I think Dan Campbell would really, really like him. He just has that, blue collar, tough nose attitude. He's 6'5", tested absurdly. I don't think he's that good of an athlete when it comes to the tape, but definitely think that he is a very, very polished linebacker prospect and somebody that I think will be a very good player in the NFL. The Steelers back on the clock now. Jalen Carter, their first-round selection. I'm going to have them going with DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State. It sounds like there's a decent chance that he does fall a little bit. Teams just seem a little bit concerned with his athleticism, with his ability to move in space. But I definitely think that in the right scheme, he could be a very good player as a right tackle. Just somebody that is so long, so powerful. You're not really going to go through him. It's all about his ability to mirror rushers and, contain them on the outside shoulder and really just, can be consistent with his technique, because I do think he has all of the tools in the world to really be just a behemoth at right tackle. Have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the clock next. I have them going with Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami. He's rated pretty low on this here, but I definitely think he has the traits to be a great player in the NFL, somebody I do expect to go somewhere in the second round, and I definitely like him as a nice corner prospect. Some people are very high on him as well, and even have him as like corner 5. So I definitely think that there's going to be very different opinions on him kind of all over the league and within the media as well, but I definitely think there's a good chance that he does end up going round 2. We have the Dolphins on the clock next. I have them going with Cody Mock out of North Dakota State. Just think he could provide some nice flexibility on the interior. He can play pretty much any position, I think, on the offensive line. I'm not sure he would be a very good tackle, but he does have experience there. And I think he could be a very good center. He's got great movement ability, and I do think, he could hold up pretty well at guard as well. So just some flexibility on that offensive line. Get the best 5 guys out there. You've got to protect Tua. That's got to be priority number 1, and so Mock is kind of their first step at accomplishing that. I have the Seahawks now taking Emmanuel Forbes. I understand that, they do have Kobe Bryant, they have Tariq Woolen, some nice players there, but Forbes just fits what they like to do, kind of that off coverage, somebody that is just an absolute playmaker when it comes to getting interceptions, getting hands on balls, getting tips. He's just always kind of there. He is small. He's 166 pounds. I think there's a good chance that if he was 185 pounds, he would probably be a first-round pick. There's just a lot of people scared about that size, and probably for good reason. I just don't know where he'll fall. Wouldn't surprise me if he goes in the first round, maybe to a team like the Bengals, or he could fall all the way to pick 52, where he's going in this draft, where the Seahawks pick him up. We've got the Chicago Bears on the clock next. I have them going with Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State. He's just somebody that is very good when it comes to being a receiving weapon. I think he's going to be a big slot kind of guy. He's very fast. He's very athletic. I didn't love his blocking, but I think, for the Bears, Cole Kmet's a very solid blocker, and Musgrave would kind of come in as a slot wide receiver with, some ability as a tight end too, and really just kind of be a nice another weapon for Justin Fields. I think he can provide some separation ability. He's very dangerous, sprinting up the seam, and so definitely think that he will have a big role in the NFL, and he could fit, just providing another weapon over the middle of the field for Justin Fields. For the Chargers on the clock now, I have them going with Josh Downs. You obviously hoped that you got a wide receiver with some speed in round 1, ended up getting Dalton Kincaid, and then you come back and Josh Downs is still on the board. I think, he's going to be a slot wide receiver. He's somebody that has some really good separation ability, but not sure he's ever going to be a true wide receiver 1, but just get Herbert as many weapons as possible. Really just kind of unlock that passing game as much as you can, and I think that those two players would really, really help doing so, both in the short and intermediate game, as well as kind of stretching the field a little bit as well. For the Lions on the clock now, I do have them going with some size at wide receiver, Rashee Rice. He's kind of a contested catch type of player. He's got some really nice traits. I do think that in a class where there's not many wide receivers with good size, Rashee Rice has a very good chance of going round 2. He's got some really nice tools. He's just kind of got to put it together a lot more consistently, really play with 100% fire and effort on a consistent basis. And I think that, he could be very, very successful in Detroit. The Jaguars on the clock now. You've got Brian Branch. I think they're going to go with Keanu Benton. It wouldn't surprise me a little bit if Benton made it all the way here. I just like him so much as a player, but I'm going to have the Jaguars select him, get some beef in the middle of that defense. Brian Branch, Keanu Benton, that would be an awesome draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Giants now on the clock. We have them going with Quentin Johnston in the first round. I'm going to have them going with Joe Tippmann, the center out of Wisconsin. He's big, and he's definitely got, some uncharacteristic size qualities for a center position, but I think he moves pretty well. I definitely think that he's somebody that the Giants could really use. They need somebody to really be an anchor in that middle of that offensive line at the center position, so really like what he could be for them. Now we have the Dallas Cowboys next. I have them going with Siaki Ika, the defensive tackle out of Baylor. He is pure size, somebody that can really be a big run stuffer. He's got kind of like a dancing bear type of mentality. He's a little bit shorter, he's stubbier, but definitely think that he can be dynamic in the run game, just being able to plug up the holes. And I do think he has some decent upside when it comes to the pass rush as well from the nose tackle position. For the Bills now, I have them going with DJ Turner. I just can't see Turner getting out of round 2 with that 4.26 speed. Just really, really like what he can do just with that athletic tools. And I'm not sure he's the most polished player out there, but in the Bills room where he doesn't necessarily need to start immediately, they do have some long-term needs at that position, but I definitely think that, he can just be a great developmental pick for them. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals on the clock, I'm going to have them going with Julius Brents, another one of my favorite players. He's just so physical. He doesn't necessarily have the long speed, but all of the other athletic tools are there, and he's somebody that I just really, really like. He's willing to come up and hit, which the Bengals absolutely love on their defense from their corners as well. So definitely just think he makes a ton of sense. Eli Apple, currently unsigned, so definitely think they could use some depth at that position, and I think Brents would be an awesome fit for them. The third corner in a row coming off the board now, Darius Rush out of South Carolina going to the Chicago Bears. Just think that they need to solidify that last corner spot for him. You've got Kyler Gordon, you've got Jalen Johnson. Now go ahead and get that other outside corner in Darius Rush. Very physical, really like his traits. I think he is an underrated player in this draft and not somebody I would have any issues with taking in the second round. Definitely like what he could do for the Bears. For the Eagles now, I have them going with Tuli Tuipulotu here. I just think that he provides a lot of versatility on the defensive line. He's bigger, but he has got some really nice juice to him. And I think that, once again, Howie Roseman loves investing in the trenches. He's somebody that I think would be kind of a steal at the end of round 2 here. So definitely think that the Eagles would pounce on that opportunity to take Tuipulotu at this pick here. And finally, I have the Kansas City Chiefs on the clock. I'm going to go with Tyler Scott. Just provides unreal speed, unreal ability to really just kind of fly and be a weapon for Patrick Mahomes. Definitely think that he would be a very fun player in that offense. That is going to do it for my 2-round 2023 predictive mock draft. Do appreciate you watching so much. Please, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down below. Put out tons of NFL draft content just like this. You won't want to miss it. And I do appreciate you watching so much. I'll catch you in the next one.